I'm ready if you're ready.
Are the meeting platform hosts ready to begin?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready to begin the hearing?
I am, and our ranking member is he on Zoom, gentlemen?
I am.
Hi, Barry.
Hey, sir. How are you?
Doing great. We are ready to begin.
Please provide a 5-second countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, no, what's wrong?
Good morning. I call this hearing to order. I request unanimous consent that the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Today, our subcommittee is meeting both in person and remotely. I want to be clear about what makes this format possible. First, the wide availability of vaccines and boosters throughout the United States, and specifically to the members and staff of this committee. Second, the regular and continued adherence to the recommended health and safety protocols. This pandemic is by no means over, but we've reached a point where we can safely engage in person if certain practices are followed. This information previously was provided to members and staff, but I want to reiterate what the committee will require in order for members and staff to participate in this hearing in person. 1, if you're unvaccinated or your vaccination status is undetermined, you must wear a mask at all times. 2, if you're unvaccinated or your vaccination status is undetermined, you must maintain physical distance within the hearing room. 3, if you're feeling unwell, you should participate in the hearing remotely. And 4, members are permitted to be accompanied by 1 staff member while they're present in the hearing room. During the covered period declared by the Speaker pursuant to House Resolution 8, remote participation in hearings will continue to be an option for members. For those members participating remotely, if you're experiencing connectivity issues, please make sure you or your staff contact our designated technical support staff so those issues can be resolved immediately. Members participating remotely must continue to remain visible on camera for the duration of their participation in the hearing unless they experience connectivity issues or other technical problems that render the member unable to fully participate on camera. It is committee policy that members participating remotely will remain muted when not recognized, and for those in the hearing room, the policy remains the same, that only members who are recognized or seeking recognition should unmute their microphone. This is out of courtesy to all members on the committee and so that background noise does not interfere with another member who is recognized to speak. When you are recognized, whether in the hearing room or on the remote platform, you'll need to unmute your microphone and pause for 2 to 3 seconds before speaking so that your words are captured on the live stream. Without objection, members will be recognized in order of committee seniority for questioning witnesses today. All right, with that out of the way, I want to welcome everyone to today's Economic Opportunity Subcommittee Oversight hearing entitled Veteran Readiness and Employment, Is VA Succeeding? In March of 2021, this subcommittee hosted a roundtable with the Department of Veterans Affairs and veteran service organizations to discuss issues related to the Veteran Readiness and Employment, or VRE, program. Today we'll hear from VA and VSOs about progress made since our March 2021 roundtable and other issues that persist that are barriers to veteran success in the program. VRE, formerly known as Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment, and colloquially known as Chapter 31, is one of VA's most important educational assistance programs to prepare veterans for their post-military life. VRE provides veterans and service members with service-connected disabilities with assistance such as job training, education, employment accommodations, independent living services, resume development, and coaching on job-seeking skills. For veterans with service-connected disabilities so severe they cannot immediately consider work, the VRE program offers services to improve their ability to live as independently as possible within their families and communities. VRE benefits are administered through a decentralized service delivery network comprised of over 350 offices nationwide. These offices are staffed by over 1,600 vocational rehabilitation counselors, employment coordinators, support staff, and managers. To meet student veterans where they are, many colleges and universities host Vet Success on Campus, or VSOC programs, where veterans can connect directly with a counselor to receive support and assistance during their transition to civilian life. However, interest by schools to host a VSOC program outpaces the capacity for VA to scale it. And as of March 2022, VA reported that there were 274 institutions of higher learning on the waiting list. Student veterans have also raised concerns about the caseloads and accessibility of their VSOC counselors. But understaffing is a persistent issue across VRE, and not just at VSOC locations. If VRE counselors are understaffed and overburdened with caseloads, the shortfalls are felt not only by VA employees, but also by the veterans who are being underserved. Voicemails go unreturned, Email replies can take days or weeks, and wait times for appointments can be lengthy. We hope that VA can address how they're increasing hiring and retention of VRNE counselors today. When a veteran enrolls in VRNE, they work with their counselor to identify their goals within the program. The counselor and veteran then review the 5 VRNE tracks of service to identify which track or combination of tracks is the most appropriate for attaining those goals. The 5 VRNE tracks are reemployment, rapid access to employment, self-employment, employment through long-term services, and independent living services. This subcommittee frequently evaluates veteran access and satisfaction with the VRNE tracks and legislates based on that feedback. For example, just yesterday, the House passed my bill, H.R. 7369, the Veteran Eligibility for Necessities to Undertake Rewarding Entrepreneurship, or Venture Act. It's a fantastic acronym, by the way, I have to say. My bill aims to increase participation by expanding eligibility for the self-employment track, which provides the startup essentials and other assistance a small business owner may require. As of July 2021, there are only 162 veterans in the self-employment track out of more than 80,000 veterans using VRNE. I'll say that again, only 162 in the self-employment track out of more than 80,000 using VRNE overall, because only veterans with the most severe service-connected disabilities currently qualify. Removing that requirement will greatly open up eligibility and opportunities for veterans to participate in the self-employment track and accommodate their employment barriers while empowering them and their families financially. Meanwhile, across all VRNE tracks, we're concerned that job placement is not prioritized enough and that training and education are emphasized more than employment. We hope to hear from our witnesses today to suggest further improvements related to the 5 VRNE tracks and veteran satisfaction and success with the program. Finally, a long-standing issue that is yet to be resolved, despite many years and many federal dollars dedicated to the effort, is the development and implementation of modernization efforts to bring VRNE into the digital age. EVA is an artificial intelligence platform that aims to digitize much of the physical paperwork and case notes that VRNE counselors must maintain throughout a veteran's participation in the program. EVA is also intended to allow participants to automatically schedule meetings with their counselor. In initial deployment, EVA appears to be relieving the paperwork requirement imposed on counselors, but many have still reported issues utilizing the system. Additionally, VA has still not developed or implemented a digital case management system for VRNE, despite 2 failed attempts. Since 2015, VA has spent $26 million to modernize this case management system, including $12 million for the first attempt and $14 million for the second, both of which failed. VA has indicated there were no salvageable parts of either of those attempts to use in future iterations of the case management project, and no disciplinary action was taken against VA employees for waste due to these failures. That's $26 million. While we fully support technologies such as EVA and the deployment of new case management systems, we want to ensure that the taxpayer dollars spent on these IT platforms are empowering VA and its employees to better serve and improve the lives of our nation's veterans. I'm ready to dive into this discussion with our witnesses, so I'll conclude my comments there, and I'll recognize my friend, Ranking Member Moore, for any opening remarks he may wish to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for graciously allowing the Republicans to pick today's hearing topic. I'm pleased that we're here today to conduct oversight of the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program, or the VRNE. The purpose of this program is to assist veterans and service members who have service-connected disabilities with on-the-job training and skills needed to obtain meaningful employment and achieve maximum independent living. Every day, the VRNE professional counselors work tirelessly with disabled veterans to help create a rehabilitation plan that is unique to each veteran's situation. I agree with those that have said that the VRNE should be the crown jewel of the benefits that the VA provides to veterans. When appropriately administered, the VRNE is more than just a benefits program. It is also a vital step for the disabled veterans to become more financially independent, give back to their community, and achieve their very own American dream. However, today it's clear that the VRNE benefit is at a crossroads. Many of the same issues that will be discussed today regarding IT failures, consistency of decision, and low morale of the VA counselors have consistently been raised by this subcommittee for many years and is well past time for meaningful progress to be made. The first issue I want to highlight is the VA's continued failure to provide VR&E counselors with a functioning case management system. Counselors have needed an upgraded system to track participants' ongoing rehabilitation plans and outcomes for many years. The VA first started in an effort to create this system in 2015. Since that time, there have been 2 failed attempts to launch this system at a cost to taxpayers of $26 million. And I understand that the VA still has little to nothing to show for these efforts. We will hear today that the contract for the 3rd attempt to create this system won't be awarded until March of next year, and we don't have any idea what additional costs will be incurred. So even in the best case scenario, this system will not be deployed till a year from now. That will be 8 years since the VA has been working on it. This is simply unacceptable to both veterans and to the American taxpayer. I will echo the comments of my friend and former chairman of this subcommittee, Jody Arrington, for an oversight hearing on VR&E in 2018, where he said he couldn't think of any place in the world, any market, any sector of our economy, any industry, or any private or public enterprise where these types of results could continue to be or could continue with no accountability. While it may not be a lot of money inside the Beltway, $26 million is a lot of money to me and to the people of Southern Alabama that I represent. We must do better. And as the old saying goes, 3 strikes and you're out. I'm also concerned about reports that this subcommittee has received about the low morale among counselors, instances where counselor turnover is such an issue that participants are not even sure who their counselor is at any given point. This is not the type of customer service that veterans deserve. Mr. Pamper, I understand that you're relatively new to this position. I thank you for being open with this subcommittee and our staff about your efforts, the efforts you're making to improve this program. I truly hope you can make a difference and get VR&E on the right track. I fear, though, that just like in the past, when other priorities like the PACT Act are put on the VBA's plate, VR&E will take a back seat. We have seen this occur over multiple Congresses and administrations. I'm especially concerned about this as we are 20 months into the Biden administration, and there is still not a Senate-confirmed Undersecretary for Benefits. Mr. Chairman, I think it is on us to keep the VBA honest and ensure that this benefit is truly meeting the needs of service-connected disabled veterans. They deserve no less. I look forward to a productive discussion today, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Thank the ranking member, and I think regardless of whether you're in Alabama, California, or anywhere else, $26 million is a lot of money. So we're certainly in agreement there. For our first panel today, we're going to hear from the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'd like to welcome to our committee Nick Pamprin, Executive Director for the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program for the Veterans Benefits Administration. Mr. Pamprin is accompanied by Matthew Manning, Director of Acquisition for the VBA Office of Mission Support. Thank you both for being here. Mr. Pamprin, you're now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you today the Department of Veterans Affairs Veteran Readiness and Employment Program, or VR&E. I'm accompanied today by Mr. Matt Manning, the Director of Acquisition for VBA. The mission of VR&E is steadfast: to assist service members and veterans who have a service-connected disability and an employment handicap prepare for, find, and maintain suitable employment or live independently. VR&E is located at 56 regional offices, approximately 142 out-based sites, 70 integrated disability evaluation system installations, and 104 Vet Success on Campus, or VSOC, locations. During fiscal year 21, VR&E paid $1.4 billion and provided support to over 125,000 veterans and service members and assisted 17,874 individuals obtain a positive outcome. As of August of 22, VR&E has processed 98,700 applications in fiscal year 22, a 23% increase when compared to 21. VR&E has made immense progress on implementing modernized systems and in turn caring for our veterans. VA recently developed a 6-point plan encompassing the areas of focus within the VR&E program. The focus of areas will improve service delivery to program participants and improve the employee experience. I will outline those now. In 2019, VA awarded a case management contract. However, due to multiple delays and concerns about the accuracy of payments, VA suspended the effort and did not execute future option years. In December of 21, VRNE launched an integrated project team to conduct a comprehensive analysis of previous efforts. In May of this year, VA released a formal request for information to industry for input. Those results have been analyzed and used to enhance our acquisition strategy. VA is on target to release the request for proposal during the first quarter of FY23, which will allow the award of the contract in March. The new case management system will be known as the Readiness and Employment System, or RES. RES will leverage automation where appropriate to reduce the need for manual entry and calculations, resulting in fast and accurate payments to veterans, as well as the reduction of manual functions currently performed by our counselors. The time spent learning from the past and developing a responsive and future-focused plan has resulted in a strategy and acquisition plan that will deliver on the promise of a new case management system. In June of 20, VA deployed the Electronic Virtual Assistant, a tool that provides faster, easier, and more useful communications between participants and staff. The claimant adoption rate is 96%, with over 11 million case notes documented and the automatic scheduling of over 380,000 appointments. At the beginning of the next fiscal year, VRNE will improve the veteran and employee experience by implementing EVA enhancements to include a document and letter generator, as well as electronic signature capability. These improvements will reduce the time it takes to make decisions based upon our current traditional mail process. The VSOC program, commenced as a pilot in 2009, has grown from 2 locations to its current 104 locations over 30 states. It serves a veteran and student and dependent population of nearly 86,000. VA is currently reviewing the requirements for VSOC position to align appropriate staff and services to support veterans and our college and university partners. In FY22, modernization and standardization efforts continue through the plan we call Employment Services 2.0. This plan enhances participation, provides access to an employment professional, standardizes the employment coordinator position, modifies current employment goals, and strengthens VRNE's relationships with employers with a goal of increasing veteran employment and improving veterans' lives. In June of 22, VA launched the Quality Assurance Improvement Program. The goal of this program is to improve the quality and consistency of service delivery to veterans through improvements within the VRNE Quality Assurance Program. VRNE counselors have an affirmative education requirement, which makes a challenge for recruiting specialized personnel. In FY23, VRNE will address hiring challenges with a national recruitment plan, collaborating with the Veterans Advisory Committee on Rehabilitation. Recruitment of qualified professionals and counselors is critical to delivering quality service to our veterans. The National Recruitment Plan will streamline the hiring process and enhance collaboration with colleges to ensure that VRNE is an employer of choice, and which will result in better service to our veteran clients. The 6-point plan promotes continuous improvement in the service delivery of veterans, streamlines internal processes, and ensures fiscal responsibilities are closely monitored. Mr. Chairman, as VA continues to modernize the VA program, we look forward to working with Congress. This concludes my testimony. My colleague and I welcome any questions you or any other members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Pamper, and I appreciate your testimony. Before I begin my questions, I want to note that one of the action items that came out of the March 2021 roundtable was increased communication from the VRNE office with the VSO community. Many of those VSO community members that we work with very closely are here. I am just disappointed, I'll just be honest with you, that in my communications with them, that the type of follow-up, the type of transparency, the type of accountability that we were hoping would be achieved after that roundtable has not been. And that's both the result of reading the testimony from the VSO community in preparation for this hearing, but also just the conversations that we're having. I just want you to be aware of that. And I really expect VA to do a better job communicating with VSOs following today's hearing. And I'm going to just continue to check in regularly with you, with them, to make sure that that's happening. It's really, really important that it happens. And in particular, and I always say this, I think it's important that you stay to hear from them today. I think you're getting used to that now. That's you know, for me, always a pet peeve if, you know, they're going to be relaying their thoughts before Congress. I think the least that our agencies can do is hear them out and try to work with them. So I appreciate that in advance. With that, I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes to begin the questions. Mr. Pamperin, I appreciated your testimony about how VA plans to recruit and retain more VRNE counselors. I think that's extremely important. But I'm concerned that the plans are still just that. They're still plans, and that veterans right now might not be receiving the counseling and support they need and are promised as part of VRNE. Several regional offices have a workload far above the 1 to 125 counselor to veteran ratio that is required in statute. For example, looking at San Diego, where I am honored to represent, in February 2022, that office had a caseload of 4,414, and they currently have 29 counselors. So that's a ratio of 1 to 152 veterans. So even if the San Diego office was fully staffed with their allotted 33 full-time equivalent employees, the caseload would be 1 to 133. But what is your office doing right now to ensure that counselors have the tools and support they need to manage these high workloads?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. There's a number of things that we are currently doing, and as well as you noted, have plans to do. We are in the process of getting ready to launch a national vocational counselor announcement on USA Jobs, which will cut down on the hiring timeline to be able to bring on counselors. Additionally, as mentioned in my original testimony, partnering with the VA Commission on Rehabilitation, looking to partner better with schools to make sure that we are an employer of choice and that schools know where to refer our clients to. The enhanced use of EVA and other capabilities allow our veterans or allow our counselors to continue to serve our veterans clients with the full understanding that we do have currently 83 vacancies in the field.
Thank you for that. Veterans that we talk to often express having communication challenges with their counselors, receiving contradictory information, difficulty in getting responses, and incomplete feedback. What are you doing to ensure counselors have the sufficient expertise in all 5 of the VRNE tracks so there are no gaps that might set the veteran back?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. There's a number of things that we've already begun doing and will continue going forward. One area that I think is important to note is we've modified our training program to provide what we call micro-learning sessions, smaller pieces on one specific component, such as an eligibility determination. As of right now, we have a 95% accuracy when it comes to entitlement decisions. But there still is room for improvement. I think micro-learning allows that capability for, instead of going through a comprehensive 2-hour course, if you're just trying to remember one component, offers our employees a quicker, faster way to get those skills.
Appreciate that. I'm also concerned about gaps in data that VA is collecting related to VRNE participant outcomes. Testimony from Paralyzed Veterans of America, for example, we'll hear from them on the next panel. They highlight this issue in relation to veterans that discontinue VRNE. Do you agree it would be helpful to know why veterans are choosing to not complete their VRNE program track?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. I think getting to know all aspects of the data is critical when it comes to making informed decisions going forward. And as part, we're currently undergoing a large-scale V-Signals effort with our Veterans Experience Office to really understand all engagements throughout the VRNE process, from beginning to while you're in to conclusion, to help us make those informed decisions to understand why veterans may discontinue from the program, or what was either valuable or non-value added throughout the process so that we can improve our service delivery to veterans.
I'm glad you're working with the Veterans Experience Office, but what are you doing? What is VRNE itself doing to ensure a better outcome?
Mr. Chairman, what I would say is, for last fiscal year, we processed 17,800 positive outcomes. That's veterans who have positively completed the program. That was a banner year for VRNE. We continue to exceed our fiscal accuracy and our program outcome accuracy targets. we're always looking at ways of improving, whether it's communicating with veterans and providing comparison tools.
But I guess I'm specifically talking about your understanding of VRE participant outcomes. That was the focus of my question, not the number of veterans that have successfully completed the program.
Talking specifically about the
This is
reasons
about-
for discontinuance.
Yeah, the question was about discontinuance.
And thank you, sir. I understand the question. Unfortunately, due to some data limitations within our systems, that information is not readily available. I do agree that information is important to know.
And how can we help you close those gaps? Is there anything that we need to be doing, or is this something that you're working on? What can you share about that?
That's a good question. As part of a new modern system, data transparency is absolutely critical. We are continuing to look within the reasons for discontinuance to identify those. Unfortunately, at this time, I just do not have that data. I would be happy to take that for the record.
I appreciate that. I think it's incredibly important that you improve your collection of data and that you improve your utilization of data and that you don't expect the experience officer or anybody else to do that, that it's something that VRE itself focuses on between now and whenever our next one of these will be. So I look forward to asking you again about it. Last question for you. Are there ways VA could use the information that you would accumulate, assuming you could, to evaluate VRE's design and make changes that would improve the program outcome for veterans, which is ultimately what we all want?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. I think access to data should be the driving force for the decisions that we make to improve processes, to improve our policies, to improve our program for veterans' outcome.
Okay, but you don't have it.
We have access to a large amount of data. There are gaps within the data.
Okay, well, we got to keep working on it. Yes. And Mr. Ranking Member, sorry I went a little long there. I'll recognize you now for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pampern, I understand that you're relatively new to your position and many of the decisions that have led to the failure of deploying a new case management system were made well before you arrived. However, you are the representative of the VA in this hearing. And I also was not in Congress for many of these failures, but I do have a duty to my constituents who work hard every day to provide funds to the VA that pay your and the other executive salaries and ultimately the $26 million that has been wasted on this project so far. Mr. Pampern, I would like you to confirm the following statement. Let me know if it's accurate. In 2015, the VA has spent since 2015, the VA has spent $26 million to fund two separate attempts at case management systems. There's still no workable system in place and no contractor or VA employee has faced any consequences for the use of these funds. Is that true?
Thank you for the question. You are correct, sir, that $26 million has been spent on two efforts since 2015. As far as disciplinary actions, I can't specifically comment prior to things that have occurred before my time. However, I can assure you that the structure we have put in place is a transparent process that allows for, that will promote transparency and accountability.
Well, I appreciate your response. And what frustrates me, Mr. Chairman, is that only in government and the VA can we waste $26 million and no one bats an eye. That is not even close to how things operate in the real world. You know, as a former small business owner, I know that these types of failures would never be accepted in the private sector. Mr. Pampern, I know you and others want to get this right this time. And I believe, or hopefully the administration, when there has yet to be an accountability for the two previous failures, I hope at some point we will have some accountability. And I know you're not familiar with the process and the disciplinary actions have been taken, but hopefully going forward we can get this right in the near future. Also, Mr. Pampern, another question I have: in recent oversight visits, committee staff were told that there is an ever-increasing amount of administrative burden being placed on counselors. They reported very low morale, and some have even expressed a desire to leave the VA as quickly as possible. What are you doing to improve the user experience for counselors? And what are you doing to reach out in the field to have a better understanding of the challenges they face on an everyday basis?
Thank you for your question, sir. I think there are a number of things that we have done, have rollout schedules for, to improve that understanding of administrative burden. During my opening testimony, I mentioned enhancements to EVA, our electronic virtual assistant. We have two huge enhancements coming up, one at the start of the fiscal year, which will authorize and allow us to electronically and safely send all of our forms and letters to our veteran clients. Even more than that, it will allow veterans and our counselors to electronically sign. While that might seem like not a big thing, we're currently paper-based and reliant on the mail. If a veteran misses one signature spot, that can delay. So I think that is a large enhancement. Additionally, following shortly thereafter, will allow for the automatic transfer and uploading of those documents from the EVA platform to our Veterans Benefits Management System. Again, every time an employee has to do that, it takes minutes and minutes away from their time, and those minutes add up into real hours that they're not able to provide counseling services. So I think those enhancements, as well as continuing to explore process and improvements, and with our updates in our manual, our M28C. Additionally, I can tell you, sir, that I do hold monthly town halls, not just with our officers within the field, but we do hold monthly calls with all of our counselors that I host, where we go over a host of topics and ask questions to see how we can best improve their needs out in the field.
Yeah, and I appreciate the town hall approach. We do that often ourselves, and I think that's a great way to get feedback. So I do commend you on that, and I encourage you to continue that. One last question. Can you tell us the difference between the duties of maybe a VRE employment coordinator and a disabled veteran outreach program specialist, or DVOP, that is funded through a state workforce system?
Sir, that's a good question, and the employment coordinator position, I'm going to half answer and take the rest for the record, if you don't mind. But the employment coordinator position within VRE really is trying to be that bridge, that gap between the employer and the veteran trying to obtain that suitable employment based upon their career track. I can tell you we do collaborate very closely with the Department of Labor, and have recently just done a joint training session so that everybody understands the roles of an employment coordinator, vice what's called a leaver, and a DVOP on that side of the house. But as far as the specific roles of the DVOP, I'd want to take that one for the record. I don't want to misspeak and say something that might be incorrect.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'm out of time. I'll yield back.
Thank the ranking member for his questions. And with that, we'll now begin our second panel. We'll give everybody an opportunity to switch out. We thank our witnesses from the first panel. Everybody ready? All right, record time. Good job. We'll now begin our second panel, consisting of representatives from veteran service organizations. First, we have Julie Howell, Associate Legislative Director for Government Relations for Paralyzed Veterans of America. Good to see you, Ms. Howell. Next, we have Shane Learman, Deputy National Legislative Director for Disabled Veterans of America. Welcome back, Mr. Learman. And finally, we have Jeremy Villanueva, Government Affairs Associate Director from Wounded Warrior Project. Good to see you again. Welcome back, Mr. Villanueva. Thanks to all for joining the subcommittee today. We also have a written statement from Veterans Education Success, which will be entered into the record. With that, I'm now pleased to recognize Ms. Howell for 5 minutes.
Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, and members of the subcommittee, Paralyzed Veterans of America appreciates this opportunity to discuss the effectiveness of VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment Program. VRNE helps veterans as they work to rebuild their lives in the face of disabilities that result from their military service. I myself have used the VRNE program, and without it, I wouldn't be here today. For more than a century, VRNE has provided critical resources that contribute to the holistic well-being of our nation's disabled veterans by helping them across several employment-related tracks. VRNE is not an entitlement program, and nor should it ever be seen as such. For years, veteran service organizations in Congress have been discussing the need for increased transparency and outcome metrics for the VRNE program. VRNE should be the crown jewel of VA benefits, but until we know more about what's happening behind the scenes, we cannot accurately gauge the successfulness of this program. Persistent administrative burdens within VRNE complicate a counselor's ability to effectively provide services. One way to improve existing VRNE services is to increase engagement with community organizations and federal programs that provide employment services for veterans with disabilities, such as PVA's Career Program. PVA's Career Program provides clients with one-on-one career counseling and assistance. Our counselors offer proactive, rapid engagement to ensure veterans are connected to services and supports available to help them return to work. For veterans with complex needs due to their disabilities and other circumstances, these partnerships may provide a lifeline that results in long-term successful employment. One positive outcome from the COVID-19 pandemic is that the nature of work has evolved. For a catastrophically disabled veteran, telework or part-time work might be the only viable options for them. They may need some workplace accommodations and additional support, but they should never be denied an opportunity to seek employment. If a medical provider determines that a veteran can safely return to work, a VRNE counselor should use every resource available to help veterans find that meaningful employment. Invaluable data on VRNE is shared within the VA's annual benefits report, but actual efficiency of the program goes beyond just outcome metrics. Stakeholders outside of VA are eager for accessible avenues to request data. One simple solution to this problem would be for VRNE to hold a monthly stakeholder engagement call. VA's annual benefits report also shows that almost 90% of VRNE participants were enrolled in an undergraduate or graduate program. With such high percentages of VRNE participants attending traditional education programs, the Veteran Success on Campus, or VSOC program, should be expanded. As of March 2022, nearly 275 institutions of higher learning were on the waiting list for approval for a VSOC counselor. Several of them have been waiting approval for more than a decade. There are innovative solutions that can solve staffing needs for VSOCs, as well as alleviate some of the administrative burdens faced by traditional VRNE counselors. But again, additional resources are going to be needed to ensure program success. VSOs are eager to work with VA to develop a sustainable strategy for the VSOC program. Addressing the wait list for VSOCs is only one aspect of dealing with staffing capacity issues for the VRNE program. As of last month, as was mentioned earlier, VRNE had over 80 vacancies for counselors. These vacancies have a real and profound impact on the VRNE program's ability to deliver equitable and timely services. They also harm the remaining counselors who must assume a greater workload. The last thing I'd like to express is PVA's concern with two tracks that we believe are underutilized and poorly marketed. The self-employment track and independent living tracks can have tremendous impacts on veterans with catastrophic disabilities, but they have very low participation numbers. The narrow window of eligibility for the self-employment track limits its potential successful outcomes, which is why PVA is pleased that the Venture Act passed, and we hope that the Senate picks it up soon. Meanwhile, very few veterans realize that counselors can connect them with amazing resources, such as specially adaptive housing grants through the independent living track. and that is intended to facilitate access at home to improve their ability to successfully maintain employment. In closing, PVA believes that VRNE is an invaluable resource for our nation's disabled veterans. We would like to see the program increase engagement and collaboration with VSOs, improve its transparency and data collection, make a greater investment in the VSOC program, and give more attention to its self-employment and independent living tracks. Thank you again for this opportunity to share our views on this vital program. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Howell. I'll now recognize Mr. Learman for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, and members of the subcommittee. On behalf of DAV's more than 1 million members, we thank you for inviting us to today's hearing to provide our views on VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment Program, or VRNE. Mr. Chairman, DAV's mission includes the principle that this nation's first duty to veterans is the rehabilitation and welfare of its wartime disabled. This principle envisions vocational rehabilitation and education to assist disabled veterans to prepare for and obtain gainful employment, including enhanced opportunities for employment, job placement, and self-employment, so that the full array of talents and abilities of disabled veterans are used productively and to their greatest potential. The VRNE Longitudinal Study Annual Report 2021 reveals that veterans who complete a plan are employed at higher rates, have higher levels of income, and a higher rate of home ownership. That is the true potential and power of VRNE, assisting disabled veterans in achieving a piece of the American dream. This is why today's hearing is critical, and we need to ensure that VA is succeeding in delivering and management of VRNE. It is clear that service-connected veterans are succeeding. However, is VA? Are they maintaining the appropriate staffing levels? The annual veterans enrolled in a new plan has steadily increased by more than 4,000 since fiscal year 2015. Considering all 5 tracks, there were over 125,000 participants in 2021, as there currently is as well. VA is required to ensure the ratio of veterans to counselors does not exceed 125 veterans to 1 counselor. VA has been authorized 968 VRCs that would approximately meet that requirement based on 125,000 enrolled. However, Mr. Chairman, VRNE currently has 884 counselors, not 968. This clearly exceeds the ratio requirement, and approximately nationwide is now 1 to 141. We strongly urge VA to fill the 84 counselor vacancies immediately. Not only will this strive to achieve the ratio established by Congress, but due to the increase in veterans participating in a plan, it will assist in veterans receiving timely counseling and plans crafted specifically to them and their needs. Next, we ask, is VA providing electronic resources to make VRCs more effective? Leveraging technologies can improve the efficiency and time requirements from counselors, as we just heard, thus allowing more time for actual counseling. After 8 years, 2 failed attempts, and over $26 million, VA has failed to deliver an electronic case management system. Currently, VRNE is developing the 3rd attempt, which has been in development for more than 10 years. As noted, they are planning to award contracts to build the Readiness and Employment System, or RES, in 2023. We understand the current approach. However, with counselors spending time manually uploading items into VBMS and ensuring that veterans in schools are receiving payments, it is taking away the time that needs to be spent actually counseling veterans. Mr. Chairman, VRNE is providing successful outcomes for veterans, and DAV will continue to advise veterans on the employment and economic value of using VRNE. However, given the increase in enrollment, the current state of staffing, and the continued failed efforts for an electronic case management system, DAV has serious concerns that these issues are negatively impacting a veteran's successful completion of their employment plan. Our written testimony lists and details all of our recommendations. However, I would like to highlight the following: immediately fill counselor vacancies, expedite all actions regarding improved technologies, require mandatory annual training for counselors, and finally, we recommend establishing a 4th administration within VA dedicated to creating economic opportunities for veterans, as it would increase the visibility and, most importantly, accountability of all veterans' education and employment-related programs. DAV believes that the failures of the VRE case management system is indicative of a lack of focus, direction, and as well as a lack of constant leadership. Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, this concludes my testimony, and I am pleased to answer any questions you or other members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Learman. I now recognize Mr. Villanueva for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting Wounded Warrior Project to testify in today's hearing on the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program, or VRE. Ensuring the VA programs designed for wounded, ill, and injured veterans have the staff, resources, and vision to reach their full potential is a critical component of our mission, and we are pleased to help inform the subcommittee's exploration of this important program. In our written statement, Wounded Warrior Project discussed 4 areas where VRE can improve its services to disabled veterans, but in my statements today, I will be addressing 3. First, Congress should look to expand utilization of the program. Based on insights gathered in our most recent annual Warrior Survey, we can attest that many post-9/11 wounded veterans are facing significant financial challenges. In fact, 13% of Warriors reported being unemployed at the time of the survey. VA's VRE program has proven itself an invaluable resource for veterans who are unemployed or underemployed. According to VRE's latest longitudinal study, veterans who achieved rehabilitation have reported higher annual income, at least $22,000 for individuals and $28,000 for households. In addition, between 82 and 92% were employed this past year. Despite these indicators of value, Warriors are being turned away from VRE due to delimiting dates. And currently, a veteran is eligible for VRE for 12 years from the date of their military discharge or the date the veteran received a compensable disability. This was partially addressed by the enactment of the Isaacson and Rowe Veterans Healthcare and Benefits Improvement Act, which removed the delimiting date for all veterans discharged after January 2013. We ask that the arbitrary 12-year delimiting date be removed for all veterans to ensure that all eligible service-disabled veterans are not aged out of the program. Wider participation should be the goal. Mr. Chairman, the second area I would like to discuss is how we should strive to have a more transparent and consistent decision notification process for veterans. According to the Veteran Readiness and Employment Manual, if the claimant is determined to be ineligible for VRE, the claim is discontinued in the system on the date of the decision. The claimant is subsequently notified by a Chapter 31 adverse decision letter with a form explaining their appeal rights. Warriors have attested to denials coming over the phone or in person without a letter stating the denial had occurred, and in many cases, if a letter was received, it would not contain that required information. Far too often, we have veterans coming into us and asking what can be done, only to be told that they first must get a decision in writing so that they can start the appeals process. Congress can help alleviate this problem by ensuring that VA adheres to its own policies on what information must be included in VRE decision letters. Mr. Chairman, there are 5 tracks through VRE, but for my third point, I would like to highlight the self-employment track. This is for veterans with the most severe service-connected disabilities who may be eligible for training and assistance to become self-employed. The VRE program's mission is to provide job training and related services to enable veterans with service-connected disabilities to achieve independence in daily living and to obtain and maintain suitable employment. In some cases, self-employment is the most holistic approach to ensure that the veteran not only succeeds in their rehabilitation, but thrives. In addition, we believe that this is a track that could be used to help build not only the service-disabled veteran presence in the small business community, but also to increase the pool of applicants willing to contract for the government as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, or SDVOSB. In July, the Biden administration announced its goal of increasing by 50% the share of federal dollars to socially disadvantaged businesses by 2025, and increasing the number of contracts for SDVOSBs. This leaves a pool of $25 billion potentially available for disabled veteran businesses, and VRE can be the avenue to prepare them to compete for these contracts. Our 2018 survey revealed that 38% of respondents wanted to own their own business. We believe that these warriors are not using the self-employment track for 2 reasons. First, many veterans are unaware of this program, and we believe that VRCs should be trained on how best to direct compatible veterans to it. And second, this track is only available to veterans with the most severe service-connected disabilities. And we believe one solution would be to expand the eligibility criteria. We thank Chairman Levin for introducing the Venture Act that would expand eligibility for this track to include not just the most severely disabled, but any VRNE eligible disabled veteran. VRNE should make every effort to ensure that the warrior thrive in a suitable occupation, and we are thankful that it passed the House today. Mr. Chairman, Wounded Warrior Project once again extends our thanks to the subcommittee for their continued dedication to our nation veterans. This includes my testimony, and I would be happy to answer any questions you or the other members of the subcommittee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. With that, I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes to begin the question portion of the hearing. Ms. Howell, thanks for your testimony. And by the way, I liked the idea about a monthly stakeholder engagement call or meeting. That seems to me to be a pretty effective thing. We do that with our VSOs and with lots of others, and it's a good thing to just communicate, over-communicate. I really appreciated also your underscoring the importance of data collection in your testimony. There are some key metrics that VA does not report that would be helpful for informing the work of advocates in Congress as we craft legislation to improve outcomes for veterans using VRNE benefits. You mentioned a few data points in your testimony that would be useful to know, including the reason that a veteran might elect to discontinue their VRNE participation, as I discussed before with Mr. Pamprin during the first panel. Thank you for sticking around, Mr. Pamprin. What other suggestions do you have, Ms. Howell, for VRNE data collection?
Thank you for that question, sir. Beyond the points that I outlined in my testimony, I just really quick want to highlight how important it is for VA to understand why people disengage. As we try to get more and more people to enroll in VA and to embrace their benefits and engage with them, why are people being denied? I think understanding that is critical and understanding the way we can deliver benefits to people, particularly for VRNE. If we see, you know, as my colleague mentioned, when you're denied and you don't receive those appeal benefits and those processes, what's your recourse for that? When we have a clear understanding of why people are not engaging, the experience that they're having with that, the relationships with their counselors and how they engage with those resources, understanding that on the back end is vital in success as far as I'm concerned. I also think that as they develop their new case management system, I assume this can be like built into the system, and there's a way to track metrics that they don't have the capability of yet. And I think that understanding a robust data set that we are all after will help them move forward in developing their case management system.
I think that all sounds great, and I hope you all collaborate to make sure that to the extent that feature can be integrated into this new case management system that it is. Mr. Learman, I really appreciated your testimony and a lot of the recommendations. One touched on the need to establish a fourth administration within VA, dedicated economic opportunity for veterans. I think you know that my friend Brad Wenstrup and I have a bill to do that. We passed, the bill passed the House last year, and it's pending in the Senate. If any of my friends in the Senate are listening, that would be a really great bill for you to consider. Can you talk through why VRNE and other VA educational assistance programs might be better managed in an administration separate from VBA?
Absolutely, and thank you. If we take a look at some of the failures in the last few years, not just through VRNE, but also education and GI Bill payments a few years ago became a huge issue that required the Undersecretary of Benefits to get personally involved, change the way they were doing their electronic systems for payments and everything else. It feels like everything right now is just reactionary, to where if we actually had people dedicated to oversee and be proactive in thinking, planning, we wouldn't be having these crises as they pop up and then, oh no, we need to deal with this now. The Undersecretary for Benefits is going to focus generally on claims, benefits, appeals, the backlog. The only time that they're getting involved with the VRNE and education issues is when there's a problem. So that's why if you separate them out, you're actually going to do three things. You're going to, one, release a burden off the Undersecretary of Benefits to not have to oversee and manage yet additional programs. Two, you're going to provide the oversight and accountability required for education and VR&E services. And three, you're going to improve this for disabled veterans using the system, not just for education and voc rehab, but also for claims, decisions, and appeals, because they'll be able to focus. So I think those three things can be achieved if there is a fourth administration.
Thank you for that, and we're certainly going to keep at it. We're just going to stay persistent with this one. We think it's important, and you know, it's a bipartisan effort, and sometimes it takes a while, as you all know, but this one's really important. Mr. Villanueva, I'll turn to you. Really appreciated your testimony in support of the Venture Act. Thank you for that. Obviously, we all want more veterans to be able to enroll in that self-employment track. I was really struck by your statistic. I believe you said 38% of your warriors indicated a desire to own their own business. That's pretty amazing. And I think that's why this bill is so important, just to be able to give more people the opportunity to start their own business, to be an entrepreneur. And I'm hopeful the Senate is going to take this up. Do you have any recommendations for other steps VA could take to increase enrollment or to expand opportunities for veterans to start their own businesses?
Thank you, Chairman. And that is a great question. It's something that we think about, you know, all the time, because the moment that we, as the VSO community, really found out about this track, I think we were all kind of taken aback. You know, one of my reoccurring mantras that I always say when it comes to almost any benefit that is underutilized or issue that seems to come up before you know, the various committees is that, you know, there needs to be a better educational effort put out by the VA to let veterans know what benefits are available to them and to explain to them how they can get them. Again, 38% of our warriors surveyed said that they wanted to own their own business, but by far the largest track that they used was the employment and education one, because they did not understand that they could go out and put out their shingle or get started with their IT business or whatever business that they have, you know, with the help of VR&E. And like I said before and said in my my testimony, you know, we truly believe that, you know, sometimes for many veterans, the most holistic approach for their financial health, their mental health, and their physical health is having their own business where they can manage it and they can give themselves their own accommodations, you know, to put out and, you know, make themselves a more successful member of society.
Thank you so much for that. I am out of time, but I will recognize my friend, the ranking member, for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Howell, I know that you are a VR&E participant. Can you please describe your experience with the program?
Thank you for the question, sir. I am a successful outcome that is recognized in the annual benefit report for 2021. So I value my experience with the program. However, I am absolutely one of the many anecdotal stories where engaging with VR&E had level upon level upon level of complication. I will always be grateful to my VR&E counselor. However, he made it as difficult as possible to engage with a program of study that I was hoping to engage with. He needed a lot of education around not only the program, my disability, and how those things sort of worked with one another. You know, often on the webpage you read that they offer help with resume writing or help finding jobs and help with placement. For me to even be approved in the program, I had to deliver a resume that would have gotten me a job. I had to prove that the program had, you know, a certain threshold for earnings. I had to show there was a demand for this program. So the resources that were supposed to be provided to me through the counselor actually became a benchmark for me to provide in order to be enrolled in the program. And so I found it relatively frustrating and stressful, and you know, we hear that a lot from veterans. And the the difference between experience among counselors is something that I think any participant in VRNE is going to express. So while I'm grateful for the program and for the benefit and the outcome, because now I'm here doing this, it was a little bit burdensome, and I think it could be streamlined to avoid that for future veterans.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. And we're glad you're here doing this, actually. It's good for us to hear this testimony. Mr. Learman, can you please tell us more about how you believe the decisions for individual unemployability, which provide some disabled veterans with a 100% disability rating based on their inability to work, could be improved by including more data from VRNE?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. I've been doing this for DAV for 24 years, various locations, and at the DAV's office at the Board of Veterans Appeals. And oftentimes when we would see an appeal for entitlement to individual unemployability, and we would know the veteran went through or attempted to go through VRNE services but was denied due to the severity of their condition, that wasn't provided in the file. So then oftentimes those cases would have to be returned from the Board of Veterans Appeals back to the local regional office and just add more years of time to get that. So that's why it's really important, if there is an electronic case management system, that data is shared in real time in the rating, so that if there is an issue of entitlement to individual unemployability, that rating specialist making the decision will have immediate direct access to any VRNE records, which may help in making that final decision and ultimately get the veteran the benefits that they're seeking.
Thanks, sir. One last question, and I'll just open this to any of the panelists. What are your thoughts on the delayed case management system, and what impact the lack of having a system newer than one made in 1997 have on services provided to our veterans? Any one of the panelists, please.
I think one of the biggest problems it's causing is delays, and delays with the counselor, and interfering with their ability to provide what is specifically needed for that veteran. Over the years, I had an employee in our office who was using Voc Rehab, and it was discovered that he had a learning disability outside of his regular disabilities. That counselor was great. She took the time, put him through appropriate training, additional resources to find out what his learning disability was. They created a plan and provided services and resources to help him overcome his learning disability, and ultimately, even though they added time to his employment plan, he was employed. That kind of time and resources and dedication to spend on one veteran to help him successful won't happen if counselors are spending time uploading things into a system and don't have ready access to that information.
That is a great question, and I think we shouldn't, underemphasize that these $26 million was supposed to be going to helping service-disabled veterans get back out into the workforce. And when we still have things like delimiting dates that is limiting, the amount of veterans to come in and utilize this program to just go out and do what they want to do, whereas getting a job, every single one of those dollars that has been wasted should be accounted for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see I'm out of time, so I'll yield back.
I thank the ranking member, and I'll recognize my friend, the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Pappas, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the discussion here today. And Mr. Learman, I'm wondering if I can start with you. And since you're a veteran who went through VRNE and you've assisted other veterans with accessing their benefits, I just want to start by thanking you for your testimony and your wide-ranging experience with the program. That's really valuable to our subcommittee. One of the recommendations is for VA to require mandatory annual training for VRNE counselors. And I'm just wondering if you can discuss any of these recommendations for how that training should be designed or the skills the training should look to sharpen.
Thank you for the question. There is the requirement that they go through training up front when a counselor is onboarded, but it doesn't show that there's an additional follow-up training. Now, it was just mentioned earlier, they're doing smaller modules. But when they run into issues that they're not familiar with, whether it's the long-term services, whether it's the self-employment track that was noted, or even what are they entitled to have in a very specific program. Representing veterans over the years, and specifically, again, back to the time when I had veterans in my office under employment with DAV as supervisors that were going through the program, we had 2 veterans that had employees in our office that had different counselors in the same area. One veteran was getting everything they needed up front. They were getting quick access. They were getting the additional resources they needed in a very quick time. The other one, who started at the same time, was having serious delays in their ability to get responses back, get information they needed, and get resources. And it actually took me to go over to the VRNE office, demand a meeting with the chief, and make sure we corrected all of these problems. Veterans shouldn't have to go through that, one, but two, not every veteran's going to have the ability for somebody else to come in and correct those issues. So I think that's part of an overarching problem, that by providing all of the resources we need for them, we can eliminate those types of issues.
Well, thanks very much for your comments. I want to turn to Mr. Villanueva next. And I want to thank you as well for your testimony. I think it was incredibly detailed about issues with eligibility determinations and just a lack of uniformity in the Veteran Readiness Counselor's decisions regarding eligibility for VRNE benefit extensions. I think you highlight an important point, which is determining whether a veteran has a serious employment handicap is dependent on a counselor's subjective view or whether their impairment is significant. So I'm wondering if you can discuss how these subjective determinations affect determinations of eligibility for extension for their VRNE benefits. If you have any suggestions on how VA can institute a uniform application of the definition by counselors to ensure that no veteran is going to miss out on any extension of entitlement when they qualify.
Thank you, Representative Pappas. That is, I can't overstate enough that the frustration that veterans feel when they get denied due to something that is subjective. If a veteran who comes in, and there's a case that, I'm sorry, just is sticking right to the front of my mind. If a veteran who is trying to gain vocational rehabilitation, who had been delimited out because of this delimiting date, and they are denied because, yes, they get a form that says, yes, you have an employment handicap, but you do not have a serious employment handicap. And I understand what my colleague's asking for when it comes to providing training and repeated training for the counselors. That is 100% needed, but the training that they are given on these, I mean, they're training them for it to be subjective. So you have a veteran who, why appeal it? Because how am I supposed to know that I don't have a serious handicap? And when I give it to a counselor, and that counselor, whether it be, you know, an NSO or what have you, and they look at the case file and they have to go back to the counselor and say, like, what is the significant handicap? Because that is the difference between those two definitions, is just one word. They are the exact same in the 38 CFR and in the USC, except for one word, and that is significant. What is significant? And we would love to work with your office to see, you know, what we can do to find an answer to this. I'm sure all of the VSOs would love to take part in that and make it so that it is more consistent, but not making this program more exclusive.
Thanks for those comments, and I hope we can stay in touch on this issue, and we would appreciate the opportunity to work with you on it. So thanks very much for those comments, and I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. I now recognize my good friend from the state of Arizona, Mr. Gallego, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Howell, I'd like to discuss your recommendations for the Veteran Success on Campus program. We understand the VSOCs are popular. There are 274 institutions of higher learning on the wait list just to host a VSOC office, and they are critical for meeting student veterans where they are. VA indicated in their testimony that VSOC counselors need specialized training at the master's levels with a focus on vocational rehabilitation counseling. What skills do you think are most important for VSOC counselors to serve their veteran clients successfully?
Thank you for that question, sir. My opinion and VA's opinion differ slightly in that I don't believe a VSOC counselor needs to have a master's level vocational rehabilitation degree. One of the built-in added bonuses of a VSOC is that they get all the campus resources that are available to all other students. What does that mean? That could be robust partnerships with your career program, who are professionals that find employment for graduates that suit their degree, their goals. All of that additional training that a VRNE counselor has is built into the systems on a campus. As far as skills that I think are needed, just like a VRNE counselor, you need to know compassion, you need to have empathy, you need to understand the situation. They list sociology, psychology, other degrees as alternative programs of study to get into this position. I think that if we're innovative about the way we look at a VSOC program, this could become a pipeline for disabled student veterans. If you get a recent graduate, get them the additional training, maybe they've already worked with the veterans on their campus through their work experience, you know? There are smart solutions to this, and we can create pipelines to ensure that more recent graduates that are disabled veterans could serve VRNE and could serve their fellow vets and other students in a way that, you know, sometimes when you're separated or you're far removed, you know, you don't have that insight. So I think that they're very simple solutions to staffing VSOCs. I think we just need to look outside the box a little bit together. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Earlier this Congress, the committee and the full House of Vets, full House of Representatives passed my bill to create a pilot program to expand vet success on campus programs to tribal colleges and universities, since Native American veterans are generally less likely to access VA services, and this would be an effective way to reach out to that community. Ms. Howe, can you speak to the importance of the VSOC program specifically helping close the benefits gap for Native Americans, veterans of color, and women veterans? And are there ways, in addition to signing my bill into law, that we can make sure VSOC programs are working for these underserved groups?
So that's a great question and sounds like a great bill. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it.
It's a great bill. We'll just leave it at that.
I have faith, sir. I will Google it as soon as I'm out of here. I think that's a great idea, and I think, again, VSOCs are uniquely situated in comparison to VRNE counselors to make those connections. Most campuses have cultural resource centers. They have offices that are there to help you with benefits such as SNAP. There are people whose whole jobs and whole livelihoods is to connect people with resources that are needed for their unique communities. And I think that if you have, particularly for Native students, any other minority population, those resources are built into the campus. And so if you get a VSOC counselor that has those solid connections to the resources on that campus, that's amazing. Not only do they get to connect student veterans to those resources, but they get to create a network of support that just completely protects that student. And I think that with appropriate training, with appropriate networking on a college campus, VSOCs are uniquely situated to be able to do all of that for veterans and have not only better graduation outcomes, better participation outcomes, but the VRNE program then gets to talk about even more successful outcomes on the end. So I think, again, there's very common sense solutions to the VSOC issue, and PVA is eager to work with the committee and VA in addressing those. So thank you, sir.
Great. And just to closing comments, I really do think that we can use the VSOCs on tribal, some of our tribal colleges to really bridge a big gap we have in terms of Native Americans being able to access veterans and also just general support or general success that comes from using those benefits. So thank you for all the work you guys are doing. I greatly appreciate it. Now yield back.
Thank my friend, Mr. Gallego, and I think if there are no further questions, we can bring this hearing to a close. I want to again thank all of our witnesses for joining us today. I do hope you continue to communicate, and that doesn't just mean today, but between now and whenever our next discussion on these topics will occur. All members will have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include additional materials. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.